John Tavares, guys, will be honored for his 1,000th point that he reached in the island last week. I would imagine Tavares will get the customary silver stick, I think.
Is that 1,000 games, though?
I don't know. What else? Yeah, I think it is 1,000 games. That's been the tradition.
But this is 1,000 points.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
You're right.
They'll get him something nice. They'll get him a nice picture, or maybe they'll get him in a...
He's already played his 1,000th game, has he not?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he played... It was last year. Remember, we had him on last year after he played it.
It was memorable. I remember that for sure.
Yeah.
All right. Let's go to Sheldon Keefe.
Obviously, it was a tremendous honor.
On this,
It's a tremendous honor.
let's go to Sheldon Keefe for our first Kippers Clipper on this milestone of 1,000 points from his captain.
It's a great moment for our guys to acknowledge our captain and just such an incredible and really rare accomplishment. So I think it's great, especially for a guy like John who, doesn't seek any sort of individual accolades or attention or anything like that. He does a lot of his best work behind the scenes, and a lot of people don't see it, and at times take it for granted and such. And then when you have a milestone like this and get to 1,000 points, it's a chance to really appreciate him for the career that he's had, and like I've mentioned before, I think he's got a lot of great hockey ahead here still, and that's credit to the consistency that he's had through his career.
So when you have big milestones and big nights like this, it gives you a pretty clear chance to talk legacy, right? That's what we do.
Yes.
And I think, it's a fascinating one with me for Tavares, because you look at what he has been since he's come here, and they signed him and paid him to be John Tavares, and he came here and was John Tavares.
Mm-hmm.
But I think a lot of people would probably say it's been disappointing since he's come here. Like, I don't know which side of it
Maybe the results have been.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, they haven't... I think he was kind of supposed to be the last piece of the puzzle to put them into the Stanley Cup final or make them that kind of contender, and they've only been to the second round once. So I don't know. It's a complicated one for me.
I think what complicates is that personally, from John Tavares, what you thought you were getting in the player, he's been that.
Yeah, exactly.
He's third in the NHL in faceoff percentage. He has been a point per game Leaf. He had a 47-goal season. He's been a very good contributor. It hasn't put the team over the hump, and I think that's where the disappointment comes through. But it's tough to look at his contributions since he's come here and say he hasn't delivered on what he was expected to be.
Yeah, he hasn't delivered on what he was expected to be.
You don't think so?
Well, I mean, if we go back to that famous pajama day, right? He was catapulted to the second highest paid player in the game.
Pajama boy.
That was not my drop in. That was Derek's. And that doesn't constitute delivering a point a game, right? It's the perception has to be that you at the time were one of the best players in the world, and I don't think he has ever reached that point. But that's not on him. That's probably more on Kyle Dubas at the time, bringing him in, and I think everybody had the vision of Marner and Matthews being what Patrick Kane and Jonathan Taves were in Chicago to build around.
Mm-hmm.
And then Tavares just got, wow, where did Tavares come from, right? And there was some talk about the Leafs being interested in John Tavares as a free agent. But at the time, as we look back on it, and he's going into his last year next year, was it the right decision?
Well, and those to me are not the same conversation. It's not, was it the right decision to me is a separate thing from evaluating Tavares' performance as a Leaf.
But a point of the game doesn't ever get you close to being the second highest paid player at any time of your career.
But there's a couple factors there. And first off, that first year he did score 47 times, which may have been
one career year.
One career year there. So that was great. I think towards this...
That year also made Mitch Marner $11 million.
That helped too. I think the tail of this contract, people didn't expect to be great. It was like, we're paying to have him be here in this front. And I think you expected the cap to be shooting up and lots of people to be passing him by now. And that didn't happen because the salary cap. And the other thing is he was a UFA, and you have to pay a premium to get a UFA. You're not spending any other assets, right? Trade asset, whatever. So some of it is that's just the cost of getting the high end UFA. But I understand what you're saying. Like, I'm not saying.
And I think it was. I think it was set up for him to never be able to achieve.
That's
unless, of
reasonable.
course,
you win the cup.
They get to a Stanley Cup final. That's the only way we're going to still measure him moving forward.
I got to tell you, you look at the whole time machine of careers, the Montreal injury in that series. I mean, it might be a totally different story. Joe Siegel recently wrote something about his legacy here.
Yeah.
If they have team success, it's wildly different.
For sure. And I do think there's a large portion of people that watch the Leafs and talk about the Leafs and fans or whatever that do take them for granted a little bit in terms of just the consistency and the ability to never make news and never be be the true professional in the hardest market to do that when you're staring down the barrel of media every day talking for 5 minutes. I just, I think it's a complicated legacy, and I'm still because I love the guy, and the fact that he chose to come to Toronto, a lot of Leaf fans will love him forever for that. Like, no one really did that. He was the first one to actually choose to come here.
What happens from here, over the next 17, 18 months or whatever of this contract, it's going to shape how a lot of people look at his time here. And
it's based on nothing he does individually other than team success.
Probably, yeah. I mean, if he were to have a crazy good or crazy bad playoff year,
score an overtime winner to send them to the first round in 20 years or something like that, second round and something like that.
Just continue to be a point a game average, which is great. And but there's a lot of those guys out there. And thousands used to be an automatic, even for the Hall of Fame. Used to be you're getting in with 1,000 games, 1,000 points. That's not the case anymore.
Yeah, he's 97th in NHL scoring all time in the history of the league. And
it's incredible.
Yeah, 1,004 points. Let's say there's 50 games left for the Leafs. If he has another 40 points, that would take him all the way up into the 70s all-time scoring. It would be a big jump for him.
Yeah. But
I know, but
he's just.
But if he finishes his career,
he's not
40th all time in the league. He's a Hall of Famer.
He's also 33. He's getting another contract. I think I looked at this contract that it was, you talk about the first 3 years of it, right, fellas? Where you're they need to really take advantage of it because the last 2 years of this contract is going to look really bad.
Right.
And he just looks like John Tavares to me.
If I was to ask,
go ahead. No, go ahead. No, go ahead, Kev.
If I was to ask you guys where the split is on importance for Hall of Fame between regular season and playoffs, where would you have that split? 50-50, 55-45, 60-40?
I think as legacies change, the regular season will become more important because there's just too many teams. We've talked about that, and I think it's going to be less important to have had playoff success. Whether it's the Sedins or Luongo or Alfredson, the most recent class.
All those guys went to the final.
But if you've got 15 guys, handful of guys that are the same, tie goes to the runner, tie goes to the playoff guy.
For sure.
And that's where he's really underachieved.
So as we're talking about this, the Islanders teams he had, no one could have dragged. LeBron wasn't dragging those teams to the Cup final,
But
in those days.
If he's in a race for Pavelski for Hall of Fame status, look at Pavelski's playoff numbers compared to Tavares's. He's played a third more games in the playoffs, and he's probably got almost a third more points. Tavares must be at I don't know, 50 games, 55 games. I played 36 playoff games. He's played 25 more playoff games than me, and he should be over 100 more.
But the more I think about this, it's not going to be close. He's going to be a Hall of Famer.
For sure.
Because he first overall pick in the NHL.
Doesn't
which
matter.
Does matter because it's, it's an honor. It's a legacy thing. You're a first overall pick. There aren't that many. He won an Olympic gold medal, and it is the Hockey Hall of Fame, not the NHL Hall of Fame. Olympic gold is going to be on his resume. The All-Star appearances. I think he was a Hart finalist 2 years. He's going to
How many
finish
All-Star appearances?
I don't know.
The All-Star games don't really
2.
happen, right? Because there's Olympics.
You're giving me kind of like
Olympic gold, first
it's
overall
okay.
pick.
Olympic gold. He was a third line checking guy,
All right.
right?
I mean, he was on the team.
He was on the
He's
team.
gonna
I know.
in a country where it's tough to make the
Yeah.
team, he's going to finish with 1,200, 1,300 points, whatever it is, 1,200 probably and change.
I think the playoffs now are going to be way more looked upon now as being a difference maker on your status for Hall of Fame.
No, see, that's the difference.
He
Well, you're
needs
saying
a great run in the playoffs.
You played in, you said 30-some games or whatever in the playoffs?
Yeah.
And I'm not saying this to be disrespectful. There's 21 teams, I think, when you guys, so you had more opportunity. The 16 teams made the playoffs. You made the playoffs 3/4 of the time. And now you make the playoffs half the time. So I think it's just less common for guys to be able to get in the playoffs a lot. Like, I don't think a guy like Jeff Skinner, has he ever been in the playoffs? I don't think you can never make the playoffs. And I think having some playoff success is relevant.
Yeah.
He has scored 2 Game 7 overtime winners to help his team pass the team.
Game 6 for the Leafs.
Game 6 for the
Yeah.
Leafs, Game 7 for the Islanders.
Not that anyone remembers that or anything.
Yeah.
You look at his playoff games played with the Leafs, and that's what kills his legacy.
Games
right?
played.
It's 7, 5, half a 1, 3, 4.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If he had played in 10 or 11 every single one of those years, it's a completely different conversation.
For sure it is. It's
played
definitely
in
the only thing. I think
yeah.
Kip would
He
say
played
if
in
he played
16
80
he
playoff
played
games, we'd say,
yeah.
he's in.
Yeah, but 55 is stunningly low
Yeah.
for a guy that's played this
And
long.
it's just not, you got to be difference makers. You got to be a guy that can
Mhm.
show that you stood out in those series.
I mean, he's
No
44.
argument
And
there.
there's
that
just,
he's
I don't
not.
know. For me, it's just not enough right now.
Mhm.
And he needs desperately this season to see a conference final or a Stanley Cup final to solidify what we're talking about.
Yeah, he can make it a no-doubter.
If
with
he,
just one deep run.
I don't even think they don't need the cup.
No,
Like,
if
they
it
need to
was
go
the
to-
conference
yes.
final, he's a point per game on the way there, it's probably enough.
Yeah, and I think after his contract is done here, which is he has this year and next year left,
Mhm.
right? Is that correct?
This year and next year, yep.
So then the question is, after that, it's he's going to get another one. Someone else is going to pay him. I don't know what. Maybe it's the Leafs. Maybe he takes the $750.
I don't know about that. Not if he's
I mean, he's
not
made
if
a
he gets
lot of money.
70 points in his last
Yeah,
year or
but,
something. You're
like-
not giving him.
Listen, if he was making, I don't know, 5.5
Yeah,
right now, he'd be the king.
so true.
And that's why the salary cap stinks.
Because
Because
care.
we have
Yeah.
to measure it against what he makes as opposed to what he means to the team. And, I think the way that everybody jumped off the bench and the way people all reacted, it seems like they genuinely love the guy on the team. Like seems like he's a worthy captain. It just, I don't know, a lot of times it seems that the team takes on his personality, right? And it's like,
But you
What's
don't-
that? Quiet,
I was
a
saying you
little
don't
quiet.
love that.
That's what I mean.
reserved.
Yeah,
That's
what
not
I
a
mean.
good thing.
that's what I
No.
mean. I'm weighing
Right?
both sides of this here, boys.
Yeah.
It's a fascinating conversation to me because it's one
Yeah.
of the most unclear legacies for a captain of a team to me than any that you could have.